What's up, y'all? I got some good news for you today. We have Brock Wooten in the house. This man just landed a 90K fully remote role in just 23 days. And he's here to
Yep.
talk about his experience in the sword program, what life was like before, after, and where he's at now. So, Brock, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, 100%. First question I have for you, brother, is tell us what life was like before joining Sword, because we talked and you hadn't been super familiar with tech sales and what it all entailed. So, what was life like before even learning about tech sales and Sword?
Yeah. I was in a startup. So, there was a lot of, uncertainty, dealing with a lot of risk, and things were kind of wrapping up. And just wasn't in a great place as far as the company. Loved the people that I was working with, but as far as the company direction, I didn't really see how I was going to continue to be successful in it. So I was definitely kind of hitting a rope or like hitting an end of my rope, as far as my willingness to wait around and see when things were really going to take off. And that's when we got connected, and it definitely was, lacking confidence. You even told me this on our initial call, like, hey, I feel like if I was talking to Brock from like 2 years ago, I feel like he would have just pulled the trigger on this and made a decision. And it took me, an entire day to, really scrape every concern off and just pull the trigger on it. So, there was definitely a lot of uncertainty and a lot of, you know, concerns about money and all that stuff. And now it's, there's still concerns, of course, but there are a lot of them are taken off, lifted away because of the opportunity that's in front of me. So.
Amazing. Yeah, tell us about that. So, that's before. What about after? What's the biggest result we achieved together?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We went in and like with the steps that you had lined out, went in and crushed it. Got a 90K OTE, which is awesome. The It's in cybersecurity, so growing industry, a lot of room for growth. So that's just a fantastic point right there. Is just breaking into an industry that can be relatively hard to break into if you don't go about it the right way. And so that's really exciting. And then also just like the immediate, like, getting married, having like a stable income for when we get married, paying for the mortgage, all of those things. So me and my fiance are definitely excited about that, and we have something a little bit more stable and a little bit more like drawn out to look forward to, which I think is the biggest thing. And it's like we actually have some mental numbers that we can start planning around, which
That's beautiful.
creates a lot of
Yeah.
clarity.
Yeah, clarity and certainty about the future and hey, these goals, like we can go hit them
Yeah,
together. That's
exactly.
huge.
Yeah.
Huge. What ultimately led you to picking Sword and working with us?
Yeah, it was really, you have quite a unique perspective. I feel like in today's day and age, it's very hard to find people who are, so willing to express things like, "Hey, don't worry, it's all in God's timing. It's in God's hands." Like that was something that was definitely really nice throughout the program. Was not just having like a "You got it, man. It's you're gonna do good." It was also like a "Hey, like." There's somebody out there looking out for you, and things will work themselves out. And having that reminded throughout the process, because interviewing is always like you're being scrutinized, you're having people ask why you, and you're having to do a lot of explaining of yourself, and that can potentially lead to self-doubt. But with that specific approach, that was really appreciated, and I noticed that right away. Was That's something that stood out to me, was the fact that you were willing to be bold with your faith, and that's something that a lot of people aren't willing to do nowadays. So.
1000%, man. I appreciate that. And I think we got to see kind of the fruit of that mindset because you
Yeah.
came in, you hit the ground running really fast, started landing interviews, and a lot of opportunities started to kind of seem like they were shaping up. And
Yeah.
then we had another opportunity that you were super excited about, didn't work out.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
cool, there's peace in that. Like there's
Yeah.
clarity in it.
Yeah.
So,
I remember what's funny is that before that it even happened, you were like, God opens doors and he closes doors. So don't worry. If he closes a door, he'll open another one. And it was really interesting because like I had those two that I was like, right in the between, and I was like, oh, I'm really leaning towards this one. And God shut that door, and I was like, okay, that means I'm meant to be in this other one. So, it's time to be
yeah.
a good follower and just walk through that door and do my best. So.
Yeah, man. I mean, the Bible says he's not the author of confusion. So when he does stuff like that and he like closes a door, I'm like, Okay,
Yeah.
I'm kind of mad, but like, thank you. It's clear, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
good.
Creates clarity, which is sometimes rare in today's day and age.
Yeah, 1000%. You kind of touched on a little bit of how I work with you, kind of on the personal side, but what's something that really sticks out to you about my coaching style?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So one thing that I really appreciate is that there were times when you would like step in and do things for me in a manner, like with some of the scripting, you would help me kind of like lay things out and you would give me a really good foundation. And then other times you'd just be like, okay, I'm going to ask questions to help you lead to it. So it's like you were able to discern when to, just kind of take control and do it versus when to just give suggestions, help me find my own direction in that. And that was really nice. And then on top of that, you're just really responsive, like having the Slack to be like, hey, I'm dealing with this situation. Let me send you a screenshot. This is what I'm dealing with. Can you give me some suggestions? And you being willing to respond and kind of give some insight was also really nice. So
Yeah.
I mean, just a lot of different things kind of stacking on top of each other that created an opportunity. I mean, we really ran through this. We were decisive on like applying to different opportunities, sending those videos. I mean, we had a good flow going, and so I think that's what really created the quick success. So
Yeah, and I love it that you're using that we language because I can give you everything, but if you don't pick it up and run with it,
yep,
then this timeline doesn't happen. 23 days doesn't happen.
yep,
But this was you showing up day in, day out. By the way, with a lot going on in your life already, still
yeah,
making it happen, just committing
yeah.
to the process. So
No
that's on you,
excuses.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no
Yeah, no
excuses.
excuses. Choose your hard, right?
Yeah,
That's what we
exactly.
say.
Yep, yeah, yeah. That's for
Um,
sure.
Speaking of choosing your hard, there's a lot of people out there that are just having a hard time getting into tech sales right now. I mean,
Yeah,
getting a job in 23 days like you did, that's really hard to do. So,
yeah.
what's something you think you learned in this process that you would share that might help other people out?
Do the job to get the job. I mean, it really is that simple. I mean, I asked one of the people that I was interviewing with, I was like, how many other people, just for my information, actually reach out and do touch points like phone calls, emails, LinkedIn messages? And he's like, well, I mean, out of, 100 people, I might have, 20 people message me on, or like my post. I might have 5 people message me, and I might have 2 or 3 people call me. Um, and I was like, that's quite a narrowing from such a large number to down to just very few. And it's honestly, it's before even working with you, I thought it was pretty common for people to follow at least some sort of a system like that. But I mean, it's obviously that you're structuring the way that you had it laid out, and having those steps inside of I forget the program that you use, but
Coda, Coda.
yeah, Coda, that's what, yeah, the Coda, that program, how you had it all laid out, and I could just click in, figure out where I was on the different opportunities, log it, find, okay, what's the next step? How do I reach out? Here's this template, follow that to a T, and then it made it super easy, not a whole lot of like in-depth thoughtfulness. And then that allowed me to be a little bit more personable each time I reached out instead of spending time thinking, okay, what are the exact words that I should say? Like just the filler words, I can just focus in on the specifics that actually matter, not just the excess. So
1000%. I think there's two extremes. There's one extreme of just LinkedIn easy apply, which gets
yeah,
you nowhere, or hyper focusing on like two companies.
yeah,
And you're like over analyzing everything. How do I do this? What do I do? And it's
yeah,
that sweet spot that you found of repeatable quality work. And it
yeah.
wasn't so personalized and tailored, but it definitely wasn't spam. And I think that's what led to so many interviews and ultimately the 23-day turnaround.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, one of the things that like I know that I have experience in sales, but for the people who may not have, like I know that it was pretty intimidating going into it, seeing people who are talking about, oh, I have, I did 150% of quota, like on my annual, meeting amount or on my annual revenue. Like that was intimidating because I didn't have any of those numbers going into it. Like I had my like call metrics and some of those things like that, but a lot of it was just the skills or the knowledge that I had, and I had to talk a little and lean more on that rather than having exact numbers. And so for anybody who is in that similar boat, like you don't have to have those exact numbers. They're
Hmm.
important. You should try and find them if you have them, but if you don't, there are opportunities that you can still work and be tactful about to work around that. And of course, having Jack's guidance is going to make it easier to maneuver that situation rather than just going it alone.
Yeah, and manager's perspective on that. Anyone with those numbers of like 110% quota attainment, that stuff, that's like a cherry on top. It's a few cherries on top. That's awesome.
Yeah,
But we just want the cupcake. Like
yeah,
just
yeah,
show
yeah,
us how you have met KPIs, how you've run your day to day similar to how an SDR is. Even if you're not doing sales, it's like,
yeah,
okay, well, you're still at a company to bring in revenue somehow. So
yeah,
start drawing that story around like how you
yeah.
help the
Connecting
company
those
attract
dots
more revenue. Exactly.
for
Yeah.
sure. No,
What about someone? What would you tell someone who is on the fence about joining Sword? Like you yourself, we connected over Instagram. You didn't
yeah,
know me a couple weeks ago, and
yeah.
you
It
decided to
was
go all in. So what was that factor for you?
Yeah, I mean, we met on Instagram and it was I mean, it was just clicking through a few things, kind of just getting a feel, and then also you connected me with John, and talking to him, having a little bit more clarity from that conversation. Um and then also just like being like, okay, everything kind of lined up. It's time to go. So for somebody on that line, it's like you're if you're having a talk with Jack, I mean, you're gonna run into a fork in the road where it's like either you do or you don't. You either decide that your status quo is like what you're willing to stay in, and like you're just willing to like settle for mediocre and like mediocrity, um, or you're gonna take the choice of like actually making a decision. Like today is the day that I'm making a change, and kind of like putting like drawing that line in the sand. One of the things that I've seen is it's like what do you want? And then are you willing to give up what you have now for what you want, or are you giving up what you want for what you have? And you have to make the decision between the two. You can't have both. So
Yeah. Yeah. Goes back to choose your hard. Like, look, y'all, it's
yeah,
hard staying where you are. Life's
yeah,
hard. You're not making a ton of money. You're not present for your family. You're not investing in something long term.
mm-hmm,
It's also really hard to invest in yourself. And it's hard to take a risk and jump into something you've never done before. But Brock, I mean, you're the poster child of this. Like literally 4 weeks ago, you didn't know who I was.
yeah.
And then here we are 23 days later, and you, your fiance, your future, you're on a different path now. And
Oh,
it's
100%.
because you showed up and you worked hard. Again, I know what
Yeah,
I do works. I have the frameworks, I have the skill set, the expertise. It's are you going to show up and commit? And you did. That's why we're here 23 days later on a call like
yeah.
this. So congrats, brother. I'm
I
super
appreciate
proud
it.
of you.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to getting started at the new company and taking off and crushing it, and hopefully having your coaching program above and beyond this to continue.
Coming soon in theaters near you, Brock. Awesome, man. Well, thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. Appreciate you, Jack.